DraftKings defense analysis for Week 12. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J Clay. I'm in a dark, somber room in the corner of the house.
You said somber instead of sultry, and that really shifted the mood of this pod. I was discussing Palomino, if that was a breed of horse before the pod. Throw that in the comments if you know anything about that. But
or if you want a camper, if you want a Palomino camper.
Yeah, like, is Palomino actually a type of horse? I'm fairly sure it is. Like a paint of some sort, Yeah. Grew up around horses, if you can't tell. Pretty much an expert. Once in my life.
Which,
Did you know that?
You've ridden one or did you hoard them into like...
No, I rid one bareback. And I was in shorts and a Miami Heat Shaquille O'Neal jersey.
Wow. And you know what? You're really just missing like the long streaking hair, like
I know,
flowing in the back,
like a slightly overweight, kid in a 12-year-old kid in a Shaq jersey. It's pretty alluring, if you ask me.
Someone needs to dig up those pictures.
Speaking of, Blake Bortles, I'd imagine he's gone bareback, riding a horse a few times or so. I just feel like he's a guy that's randomly ridden a horse before. I don't know why. We could have taken a dark turn there, but I saved us. Buffalo Bills, I do think they're a cash option this week. We haven't quite seen the upside of late, but, they do have some really enthusiastic secondary players that are really aggressive is how I would describe it. Really like to take advantage of turnovers there with Gilmore and the other youngin they got back there. I forget his name.
Roby.
Blake Bortles is a pick six machine. He is a machine. Other than like Josh McCown, the last two times he's come in for Cody Kessler, I've never seen someone turn over the ball more. And Ryan Fitzpatrick in the red zone. 5 red zone interceptions. It's pretty impressive. But back to the Bills. Yeah, I don't know. This is a good matchup. Jacksonville is something you target every week now, I think, is where I'm at.
I definitely agree. I mean, especially with Buffalo being at home, I think that's a pretty big, a thing. And obviously, Vegas 19 team total, they're not expecting Jacksonville to really do much. And I do think that secondary is pretty good. I do think they can match up well with, your boy Marquise Lee and obviously Allen Robinson. And we don't need to mention the other two.
Hold on, let me get my collar set up for Marquise Lee.
Can we just talk about how cleaned up and presentable you look for the first time in about a year and a half?
Hey, a year and a half? Give me a break. Give me like a month and a half. I mean, the hair, I won't even deny the hair was getting really bad, guys. I'm sorry. That's not even presentable. If I were you, just go to YouTube, open the tab, and then open another tab, and you don't have to look at my pale, hairy face. Moving on, though. So I talked about Jeremy Hill yesterday, and I wouldn't be a true tout if I didn't hedge my bets with Baltimore defense today at 3,100. So, you know what they say, as Bill Burr describes the presidential candidates, you just bet on both horses and hope something figures itself out. So I love the Ravens defense. Obviously, with Andy Dalton, without AJ Green, is just a shell of himself throughout his career. At 3,100, I mean, they should definitely be more expensive than this. As far as I just think in general, this is a great matchup. Ravens are a top 3 to 5 defense this year. I don't think anyone would debate that, especially with, the Cardinals kind of falling off a little bit and the Broncos run defense. I mean, Baltimore is the most complete defense in the league right now.
I certainly agree, and I certainly agree that they should be more expensive because they're not on FanDuel either. I mean, they are really cheap, which I just think even if AJ Green and Jeremy Hill were coming into the week and Giovanni Bernard were coming into the week healthy, I still feel like they'd be underpriced.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, they've shown a pretty good job of shutting down AJ Green in the past, so I actually don't disagree with that take. But yeah, 3,100 in general just seems like a nice price to jump on.
It definitely does. And then we get into the GPP defenses here. At first glance, I wish there was more of a discount between the Saints and the Ravens, but there's not.
Yeah, so we were talking through the slate yesterday, and I was in denial, and we were going through, and you were like, Russ, we were talking about cheap defense. So I'm like, man, I really like cheap defenses this week. And you're like, yeah, well, who might be a good idea? You're not going to like this is the Saints. And I sat there. I got angry. In the moment, I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. And then, I went and sat on a rock and pondered. And it's a great play. Saints haven't been that bad lately. I mean, I know we're used to the Saints. They're still not great, but they've got some young talent on that defense. And generally speaking, in the last, 3 to 5 weeks, they've actually been pretty decent at getting, turnovers and sacks. So this is not the Saints from 2 years ago, that just gives up 30 points a game. So I actually think they're an interesting GPP option at 2,800.
I do too. I mean, we saw this Rams, obviously small sample size was Jared Goff, but the offense did not look any different than if Case Keenum. You put a blindfold over me, or I don't know why you put a blindfold over me, but put like a piece of tape over like their back names and numbers, and I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Well, I think at some point they're gonna spread out and have them take more deep shots. Last week was not the week. That was a tough one to come into blind, but I think he'll have a little more success. Seems like he's a little less turnover prone than Keenum, but overall, what you're getting right now is a very limited set of play calls. So Saints should be able to feast on that.
Definitely. Tennessee, you're looking at here, 2,800.
Yeah,
basically getting Chicago's practice squad this week.
Oh, I feel bad for the Bears fans. I feel bad for Jordan Howard. I feel bad for Zach Miller. Actually, we should have a moment of silence for this beginning of the year, Bears team.
But the thing is, it's been over from the start.
It has been over from the start. Alshon has been the weirdest contract year I've ever seen, really. You kind of expect guys to ball out. Him and Michael Floyd, it's just they got those fifth-year options and just totally blew it. So there's just nothing left. I mean, there's literally nothing left. Zach Miller was the last good piece to that passing game, and he's gone. Kevin White, Alshon Jeffrey gone. Jeremy Langford and Jordan Howard, not a bad combination, actually. Jeremy Langford's going to have a decent role as a backup. But, the Titans kind of got exposed against good quarterbacks last few weeks. They will not be facing a good quarterback in Matt Barkley. So, yeah. And hey, Ruben Randall, he's going to be a target monster and getting 2 catches for 25 yards if they sign him. So I'm excited.
Oh, my God.
Can't you just see Ruben Randall was running wrong routes with Eli Manning on a team he'd been on for 4 years. Imagine him coming in the week of and them throwing him out there for 25 snaps. That's just auto pick 6. He's going to just run 7 wrong routes, right?
They're going to call 5 out routes and 4 of them will be verticals that he'll run. And he'll look and if the ball's not picked, he'll look and then throw his arms up, he'll turn his head, just throw his arms up it's not his fault.
When the camera follows the receiver sometimes because they think that's where the ball's going, and it's just and the defender's already in the end zone. I could see that happening,
just nonstop. But speaking of the Giants,
it's actually gonna hold on. It's gonna be so bad, it's gonna be actually pretty entertaining.
Yeah, and you know what?
We'll
We've gotten to the NFL. We've gotten to the point. Last week was a good week, entertaining week. Last 2 weeks have been really solid weeks to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But we are getting to a crucial point where I think
teams give up.
it's going to be even worse than what it was in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
We have to prepare ourselves for that.
Along with now kickers are like non-existent. Like kickers can't even make extra points anymore. It's these last few weeks for the teams that have given up are just going to be brutal.
And I'm excited for Denny's kicker pod this week.
Oh yeah.
Because he has to line up something to say about 11 missed extra points.
Unbelievable.
So, but Giants, let's move on to your last year, 3,600. Cleveland, obviously this is another offense where they're just dealing with a rotating quarterback situation. And the Giants defense is fairly solid.
Cody Kessler, again, you know, I make a lot of school references. Cody Kessler's that third grader on the playground that's always getting hurt. Like he doesn't cry, but he's just like always in the nurse's office. Like Cody Kessler gets crying, but like smashed,
like a packet of ice. Like
like he's fine. He gets a bee sting or like there's something. You know, I feel like every Sunday it's just Cody Kessler with his face mask mashed in the dirt. Like teams just know they can tee off on that O-line, and it's just unfortunate for him. Josh McCown comes in and literally gives three turnovers right off the bat. The last 2 times he's come in, he's literally had like 5 turnovers in like 4 quarters. It's incredible. So, you know, based on that alone, even without thinking the Giants have improved on defense, which, you know, they weren't perfect last week, but they ended up putting up a respectable score. I think this is another one you obviously exploit, you know, borderline cash. I know it's expensive and that's why I put them in GPPs, but they're not horrible. Like you were kind of in on this last week.
Thank you.
They're really not bad. Like they're not bad. The Giants D is not bad for the first time in a long time.
No, I really do think the fact that they added some pieces on the defensive side through the draft, which have made immediate impacts, went out and signed some free agents. I mean, they have some playmakers. Mm-hmm. And it is a bend and don't break approach, but Cleveland just doesn't break through, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and you know, they had Isaiah Crowell early in the year, kind of making some big moves here and there. He's kind of fallen off. I don't know what's going on there, but really the only time Cleveland gets any type of movement is at the end of the game when they're playing prevent. So, you know, I think if you're just looking at not great defenses that you can still use, I think Titans and Giants, even with prices considered, are really good, solid options. And the Saints are really the tournament punt more than anything else.
Yeah, I think so. Because I even think regardless of the matchup, the Saints are going to be low owned because the Ravens are only 300 more because the Titans will be a talked up defense this week. So in terms of being a tremendous pivot off of basically everyone in this article, which are all great defenses, New Orleans is probably going to be your lowest owned.
Right.
So that's going to wrap things up with the DraftKings defense analysis for Week 12. Be sure to head on over to DaveFantasyCafe.com. Check out the rest of our great Week 12 content. If you like what
Degrassi?
We're like, no.
Check out Degrassi. Check out
Degrassi if you haven't. Yes, Next Generation. If you haven't, go rent that or go catch it on Netflix. And just do that. Don't even go eat turkey on Thanksgiving. Just go watch Degrassi.
Degrassi by yourself alone. Yeah.
So, you know, we'll catch you guys in Week 13.